Have one with yourself, and then go speak, O you prophet. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jacqueline Rhinehart. I'm author of My Organic Soul, From Plato to Creflo, Emerson to MLK, Jesus to Jay-Z, a journal to help you discover yourself through words of wisdom from visionaries past and present. And welcome to My Organic Soul book, blog, video. And the modus operandi I wanted to discuss quite briefly about the book is the journal uses the words of the world as notations to highlight our own spiritual reality. I've collected some of the quotes, lyrics, phrases, and passages that I found to be poignant. And then I've juxtaposed them with the influential prophets of the secular world. So you may have on a page biblical scripture, classical wisdom. This is how you get Plato to Creflo, Emerson to MLK, Jesus to Jay-Z. And today I've invited some of my more thoughtful and awake friends to join me in the discussion about the book and some of the comments that have spurred their thoughts on the book. So with me today is Mr. Harry Allen.
Hi,
He is
Jackie.
a journalist, blogger, and known foremost for his incisive questioning. He never believes the hype. He is known in musical circles as the media assassin of Public Enemy fame. So welcome, Mr. Harry Allen.
Thanks, Jackie. Great to be here.
Thank you.
So the quotes that I selected from your book, My Organic Soul, I have two sets here. And the first set link quotations from the Bible, Steve Harvey, Bob Dylan, and Immaculée, who is a survivor of the Rwandan Holocaust, the genocide there that took place a little over 10 years ago. And should I read them together?
Definitely.
Is that what you'd like?
Yes, I would.
First is a quote from Matthew 12:30, and it says, "He who is not with me is against me." So that's the first one. Then there's a quote from Steve Harvey that says, "When you decide to do good, expect then all hell to break loose. The devil didn't care before when you were on his side."
Exactly. I love that one.
Then there's a quote from Bob Dylan that says, "You're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, you are. It may be the devil or it might be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody." Then Immaculee's quote says, "When I submitted to God and made up my mind, it was like I was between two opposing forces." And then finally a quote from Joshua 24:15 in the Old Testament, "Choose for yourselves this day who you will serve." And I thought that this theme of service was really very compelling. I think service is really, first of all, as a person who in my own life aspires to the ideals of Christianity, service is fundamental to the Christian. The Christian is, to a great extent, defined by service. So I thought, first of all, ideas around service were very powerful. And then you have the inclusion of these two biblical quotes here. And I think that the Bible is really a supreme text. I think that it's a text that goes beyond any other text that has been composed in terms of its depth, its profundity, its reach, the salient qualities that make it up. So that really attracted me. And then also you have this lyric by Bob Dylan. And I remember when he released this song, and I remember being taken by this idea. And Dylan is one of those writers who writes very simply, but again, you'll hear something he says and it's just captivating you. It just takes you, you know. And this idea that you're going to have to serve somebody. And in that song he says, he describes all kinds of
Exactly. All kinds of people. The ditch digger, the president. You may be a woman with pearls all around your neck, but you're going to have to serve somebody.
To serve somebody. And I think when I heard the song, and this was a while ago when he released it, so I was much younger then, my first thought is that true? And then I just started thinking about it. And it's just like, no matter what you do, no matter what your role is, service is part of the equation. It doesn't matter.
Is that true?
That was my first question, because he was making an argument. Yeah. He was making his argument, and I at first I couldn't believe it. You know, I couldn't because it seems to go counter. You'd think that there have to be people in this world who don't serve anybody, but really everyone serves someone in some way. It reminds me of a mentor whose ideas I respect a great deal and whose ideas have influenced my life very deeply. And he asks, what is this term working class? He says, everyone works. Everyone.
And it's
works.
almost to say a working class is to cast aspersions on working. What? Oh, or somebody's exempt from the working?
Or a certain kind of work. But all people perform work, even if that work is just, you know, like, for example, the billionaire lady, Leona Helmsley, who died, and she said that her, I think it was grandchildren, could get this money that she left for them, but what they had to do was go to the grave of her son and be documented giving eulogy to him. So that they had to visit her son's grave at a certain time every year. Now you might say that's their job. That's their job now to get the money that she's left for them. So that's even then their service, might say. And so I thought this was really compelling. And but, you know, I'm taken by this quote by Immaculée.
Yeah.
When I submitted to God and made up my mind, it was like I was between two opposing forces. I was wondering what caught your attention when you read that. Why did you see that as fitting into this larger idea of service and forces against people, etc.?
Well, it was so compelling about Immaculée because she was literally between two opposing forces. What she was describing.
The Hutu and Tutsi forces in
she
Rwanda,
was literally. She had come from the United States for vacation to visit her family. It's a holiday, and they haven't seen her, and she feels guilty, or she needs to see them.
That's why she was in Rwanda.
So she got caught there.
She was in Rwanda.
Yes.
Visiting.
Well, her family was there. But she normally would not have been there.
And the genocide started while she was on vacation?
There you go.
Wow, imagine that.
Hey, well, timing.
Yeah.
So she's there. At any rate, she does find protection, or she's hiding. And she is in a shower, in a bathroom, with, I think it was anywhere from 6 to 8 other women in this small little, and so she's in the shower.
I heard
and
about that.
behind a wall. And she said that they were actually there. She could hear them cutting through. So she knew. She said, and it was an amazing thing because she could not. She said, I knew God. I knew God from my family, but you know there's no family plan to get into heaven. I mean, for salvation. Right. Even if your mama know him and your daddy know him, you're going to have to know him for yourself. And she said, and at that moment, she had asked for a Bible in the time that she was in this bathroom. Because that's all she could do. She couldn't talk. You know, they couldn't talk. They couldn't say anything. They couldn't eat. Anyway, so she would read the Bible. And she made up her mind then, I am going to make a decision to stand with you, God, against these forces. Wow. And then literally the forces were there. And to have them cutting right there in front of her. And she said, and she was standing on her faith at that time. And she felt like she was between two. She could literally feel the forces of evil and good holding her. In that
she had a kinesthetic sense of it, actually.
Oh, so I said, wow, my God, you actually had a physical manifestation of what it is to feel the forces at that time. And she stayed in faith during that hiding and during that time. So, at any rate, her quote really moved me because I said, wow, not just talking, you really lived it. You really lived it.
But let me ask you this. The way that you use, Jackie, what I think is really interesting about the format of the book is that for the quotes that you supply, sometimes you give your own statement. The text will have your own words and something to guide the reader or help them think about what they're reading. In some cases, you just have the quotes. And in a certain way, they're really a network of ideas that you've found and located. I guess what I'm asking is, how did you decide which quotes to put together, and what, for example, in this case, what made these go together in your mind?
I really spent a lot of time putting the quotes together. It seems as if this is so, it would seem as if it was very easy to do. in the sense that you find great quotes and you just throw them there. But to actually find the thread, the connection that made the theme and the idea, the understanding that they were trying to transmit, that was the connection.
Right.
And that's what made me pair them together.
Right.
So I would search for things that would say specifically, as I said, from a secular vein, but which would juxtapose itself with something that would go in another realm, in another dimension, so that people can see the connection. Because I
Right.
really feel there is no generation gap. There is no necessarily a philosophical gap. We just have to make the connection. So I want you to make the connection that that the intelligence that's being transmitted, the philosophy, it's ongoing, you know, so that we just don't chop it off. In this case, for this particular page, it spoke to me so clearly because it was the devil and it was the Lord. I mean, that was pretty much the theme in terms of, you know, and however you want to conjure that image up in your mind, because it really doesn't have to be a physical manifestation of the devil or the Lord, but a spiritual conscious one. But in that sense, Immaculate really demonstrated that, because it was the consciousness that she was maintaining that showed that there was a difference as soon as she made up her mind between the good and the evil. Her consciousness was what she was maintaining, is what she was fighting to. Well, that's the other scripture. What? We don't fight against
flesh and blood.
Flesh and blood.
Against the rulers, authorities,
powers and principalities. So
exactly.
That's exactly what she was feeling and what she was describing.
And with each spread, each page spread, I think what's also interesting about this book is that, as well as the quotes, which are supplied for reflection, you've created space, actually ruled lines here for people to write on, and use this either as a diary or as a place to provoke other kinds of thinking. Your goal is